Hello, history scholars. Mrs. Olson here. This is our third lesson, the last lesson on the three branches of government. So I want to begin with the learning target as always, which reads that you will be able to understand the organization of U.S. government. Now, as with our other two lessons, the executive and the legislative branches, the last one is on the judicial branch. Make sure that you have a pen and paper handy or another window open on your computer so that you can record and take notes. Okay, so the very last branch that we need to learn and understand about is the judicial branch. So think about the court system, okay? And the first note that I want to have you write down and remember is that the judicial branch, they interpret the law. So the legislative branch, they write and vote on the laws. The president, the executive branch, has the power to enforce the laws. And the judicial branch interprets the laws. So we have the Constitution, we have federal laws, we have state laws, and the court systems, the judicial branch, their job is to hear a case, hear all of the details about the case, and then make a decision based on the law. So let's think about the word interpret when we're talking about interpreting, say, a different language, right? When you interpret a different language, you are listening not only to the words, but also to some of the facial expressions and voice inflections, how somebody is coming across when you tell somebody else what they're saying. So you're interpreting the language, but it's based on a whole lot of things, just like a judge and a jury will do. They'll listen to all the different pieces of the case, and then they'll make their decision about the case and the law. Okay, so it says they make decisions on court cases, which is what we've been talking about. Now I want to reiterate this over and over again. The judicial branch, they do not make the laws. That is the job of the legislative branch, okay? The judicial branch interprets the law. And the highest court of the land of the United States is the Supreme Court. There's actually a whole bunch of different levels of the court, but the highest court in the United States is the Supreme Court. And this is the building of the Supreme Court. Maybe some of you guys have even visited it. I have yet to visit Washington, D.C. in my adult life. I would love to go one of these days. Okay. So the judicial branch is made up of judges and courts, so courtrooms. Has anybody ever met a judge? Do you have a judge in your family? Have you ever been to court? You can go to court for good things. It doesn't always have to be for bad things. Okay? Federal judges are appointed by the president. So I want to go back 2 lessons ago to talk about federal. Remember, we said that there are different levels of government. There's the federal government, state government, and the local government. Now, federal judges are appointed by the President of the United States. Okay? And then those judges are confirmed by the Senate. Which branch does the Senate belong to? If you said legislative, you're right. Okay, and federal judges, they're appointed for life. So they sit on the bench, right? They sit in that courtroom for the rest of their life until they retire. So here's a picture of one judge, and we had to have a lady judge too. Okay, so let's talk about the Supreme Court. We said already that it is the highest court of the land. That is true. on the Supreme Court, there are nine Supreme Court justices. I think in the beginning there were actually 6, but for quite some time we have had 9 judges on the Supreme Court. Here's our word interchangeable again. A justice, a judge, same kind of word. You can use them interchangeably, okay? And the president nominates all of the Supreme Court justices, and the Senate confirms them. So nominate means that you name somebody to be president. So this has a lot of power, but it's the Senate that actually says yes or no, they can be a Supreme Court judge or justice. Bless you. Okay. As with federal judges, the Supreme Court justices, they hold their offices for life. And these are our current Supreme Court justices. Maybe some of you guys in social media know a little bit about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's kind of got her own hashtag and her own following, so you might know a little bit about her. She's one of the oldest on the Supreme Court. And this is the newest person on the Supreme Court. Now remember that the president has nominated these people to be on the Supreme Court. And if you notice, they are all different ages. So different presidents have nominated them. The Senate confirmed them. But different presidents have put these people on the bench. And then, of course, they serve until they retire, right? They serve for life. And so that's how we get different presidents to nominate them. Or to have nominated them. All right, more on the... One second, guys. Okay, I'm back, and we are continuing with the judicial branch. So here we go. We're going to talk about the judicial process, and it says that every person has the right to a fair trial. So if you, anybody in the United States, if you are accused of a crime, you have the right to a fair trial. So you are innocent until proven guilty, and that's what the trial helps to determine, if the person who is accused is innocent or guilty. Okay? This says that you have the right to legal representation. That means that if you cannot afford an attorney, that the courts will appoint you an attorney so that you have representation when you go to court. Okay? You are also protected from cruel punishments. So let's say that somebody is accused of a crime and they are waiting for trial in jail. They cannot be tortured while they're in jail, okay? And the same thing with the consequences. Depending on what happens to somebody, when somebody goes to jail, they are not beaten, for example, by the guards. They are not hurt by the guards. Okay, so protection from cruel punishments. And then cases are tried in front of a judge and a jury. So we've been talking about judges. A jury is a jury of your peers. So maybe some of you guys have heard of your parent persons being called for jury duty. That would mean that regular citizens in the United States, they have to serve on a jury and they have to listen to the case and then to help make a decision on the case. So cases are tried in front of a judge and a jury. And decisions can be appealed. Remember, we're talking about the judicial process. So if a judge and a jury decide that the person is innocent or guilty, that decision can be changed. So you can actually file paperwork to say, this is why I don't agree, and then you can go through another court case. And on to the next slide. Oh, nope, sorry. One last one on this page. It says that the highest court is the Supreme Court, and now we have seen this a couple of different times. So you can actually start, say, at the local level. Remember the levels of government? You can actually start at the local level for a court case, and you can appeal, and you might end up at the Supreme Court if you choose to have it go that far and if the Supreme Court wants to hear it. But that's, of course, another lesson for another day. But the highest court is the Supreme Court. Okay, and now we're getting to the very end. I wanted to share this infographic with you to show that people get the right to a fair trial. The Supreme Court building, the highest court, the law of the land, and here's a judge, and this is just an example of a jury. Okay, and that is our last slide for the judicial branch. Hope you guys learned a little bit more, and now you have information about the executive, legislative, and the judicial branches. Do well on all of the lesson questions, and please make sure that you ask me questions if you have them. Bye.